Well, welcome everybody to my first of several free master classes I have for this year that's scheduled. Today's master class is all about how to turn the best of your career into a profitable consulting or coaching business that you love. So the key words as it relates to what we're going to be talking about today is it's not just generic advice about how do you build like a profitable business in general. It's about how do you build a business out of the best of who you are and the best of what you want to bring to the world. And it's about a business that you love. There's one thing that if you are going to work for yourself, and you're going to go through all the entrepreneurial hassles and headaches and all of that kind of stuff, then why would you want to do it to have a business that you just can, sort of tolerate or just looks like a recreation of your career? So we're going for a business that you love. And hi, Sarah, nice to see you. Um, for those of you who are new to me,
Thanks for offering this.
oh, thank you. Well, you're my inspiration on so much of this stuff, so thank you. Um, for those of you who are new to me, oh, and feel free to just jump in at any point in time if you do have questions and if you can't, that we're not able to move forward with. My name is Betsy Jordan. I am an ex-Disney consultant turned brand messaging strategist and business mentor. So in a nutshell, what I do is I sort of do personal branding, but it's a little bit of soul branding. What I do is my sweet spot with my clients is really activate, just kind of like their authentic who they are in their core and bring it out in their businesses and help them find the words to express the unique value of what they do. So that's kind of my sweet spot. And stay tuned to the end for a couple things. I'm going to share with you the #1 strategy that you're going to need that will guarantee not just your success, but your significance and happiness with your business. So stay tuned to the end for that. And also stay tuned for live Q&A. So I have time blocked in my calendar if we go over the allotted time period to make sure that everybody's personal questions are answered. We're going to make sure that we have that. But in the meantime, feel free to just use the chat to let me know your questions. And again, if there's a pressing question that you just can't, you just don't want to, you're not going to really be able to stay present in the content until I answer it, just raise your hand and let me know. So this is the right workshop for you. This is the right webinar, as if it's time for you to take control over your career, your time, and your earning potential by growing your own sustainably profitable business. So this is for you as if you want to be an entrepreneur. But out of all the businesses in the world that you can create, consulting or coaching is the ideal fit given your career experiences, your advisory strengths, and your passion for helping people grow. So this is the right place for you. The other thing that I would say as a qualifier to say you're in the right place is if profits alone isn't your only goal. Yes, of course, you want to make money with your business. None of us go into business to become poor. But you want more in your life. You want more balance, more impact, and you don't want to settle for less than your potential. Does this all sound like you all? Raise your hand if this sounds like, yes, this is totally me. Awesome. So my marketing worked and I attracted the right people because we are not just in it. There's a million business mentors that you could talk to about just the profits, but I'm all about the purpose and the significance as well, making money, making a difference, doing what we love. The big question we all have though is how do you make this happen? And if this is your question, that we're going to answer that today. And then the other thing that I would probably say is a question a lot of people have on their minds is it's not just how do I make this happen, but how do I make this happen without expensive, time wasting, money wasting, opportunity missing trial and error? Anybody here absolutely hate wasting money on the stupid tactics that won't work and that will just get you nowhere? I've done that, been there, and it's not fun. So a little bit about my story. As I mentioned, I got my start as an internal consultant at Walt Disney World. So I was there for about 8 years and it was really fun. I had an opportunity to work on really cool projects like the Disney's Animal Kingdom rebranding. I had an opportunity to work on a big global project that redefined the guest cast and the cast leader interaction. And what I did back at Disney is now being taught at the Disney Institute all around the world. But a lot of people who hit midlife, I decided to take that wonderful experience and start my own business. So I started a consulting business that made the most sense and it was great. And within the first 18 months, I was making I went from like 0 to 300,000 in the first 18 months, and I was working with clients all around the world. You would think, yay, I hit it. It was a huge success. Big problem is I built the wrong business. So one of the things that I wound up doing is, I kind of had that pressure, like giddy up and go. I got to get a business going. And I built the wrong business. And it took me a lot of time, a lot more money to finally figure out the right business. And once I did, it was a game changer and a life changer. And so a lot of the passion that I have for this roadmap that I'm going to be sharing with you on this workshop is from my own pain. I tell people all the time that I work with as a business mentor, it's like, you can make your own mistakes, just don't make mine. It's the same thing that I would tell my young kids. And so I have this passion around this because I've spent so much money, so much time trying to pivot. I'd rather see people start the right business right the first time. So think for yourselves. And it's so hard for me to teach without asking questions. What would it look like to have your own high profit, high impact consulting or coaching business? What would it mean to your career? Especially if you really love the work, like what difference would it make? I'm so sorry. I was just going to have you just like do it in chat, but could just like a couple people just say something?
Well, it would be, like you said, life-changing. I think that, you go from sort of not liking what you do and being constantly.
Uh-oh, Jim, you froze.
To what you do. So,
what was the last thing you said?
That you go from not wanting to do what you're doing to liking what you do, looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, Betsy, I want to chime in because I actually came because I've been watching you since you come on to social media, and I've enjoyed reading your stuff and watching your stuff. This is my 20th year, and I'm excited already about what you're saying because I've gotten to my objectives, and I'm here and I'm enjoying every minute of it. So I just want to hear more of what you're saying to reinforce my plan and my strategy.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate your feedback about the content, but I think that I love like what everybody's saying here too. It's just like what Jim's saying, like there's this phrase around, if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. Like seeing the impact that you can make. That's what we're looking at, helping. I love this, helping younger people in the field to flourish. Like it's just making that bigger difference. And also thinking about your life. When you're doing work that you really love and you're really happy, think about all that extra energy you can come back and, invest in other parts of your life, versus when it's like, your life, your work is like sucking the living daylights out of you. How much extra energy will you have to go do hobbies? Or, for some of us who are like Andrew and I, who just moved to Denver not too long ago, like how much energy are we going to have to go like climb the mountains or what have you when, work has taken every little last thing out of us. So that's what we're after here. And here's the hard thing. There are no shortcuts. There's no silver bullets. There's no secret formulas. I think we all wish we would have it. Like, I think we all would love that magical client fairy who's going to come down on high and just say, poof, here you go. Here's all your clients. You got them. It just doesn't work that way. But there is a proven roadmap. And this is what we're going to be going over in the masterclass. There are 5 phases of what you need to do to set up a high profit, high impact business. And we're going to go over them in more detail. So this is going to be the bulk of what we're going to do in this workshop. So, first things first is build the right business the first time. Build the right business that will deliver on all your priorities. If you are a mid-career person and you're leaving a job and you're starting a business, this business that you have should satisfy all of you, all the parts of you that have been begging for expression, all of the different aspects of your life, all the roles. Like if you're a parent, like when I first started a business, I had 2 young kids at home and my big driver was to be there for them. Part of the reason why the consulting business wasn't the right fit for me anymore is because I wanted to be home with the kids. And I remember this existential crisis I had. I landed a huge international client, and I had all the great things, I got flown first class, I had my own little pod in the airplane, I had the person meeting me at the airport, with my little name on the card who drove me to my gorgeous hotel, and I'm like, yay, my friend's like, you're living the dream. And I got to the hotel and I called my kids and they were home with the nanny, and I had this huge existential crisis. Is like, yeah, I was living the dream. It's just somebody else's dream. So we want to clarify what your dream is. Then we really need to get clear about who you are, what you offer, what is the unique value that you create in the world, and how do you stand out in the competition? You know, like, how do you stand out in the marketplace? That's the next phase. Once you have that strategy down with the clear messaging that will direct all your marketing, then you have the clarity enough to get in there, start creating a website, but not just any. What was that?
It is the old deal.
I'm sorry, did someone ask a question? Oh. Not just any website, but you want to have a website that is your online platform that attracts, impresses, and converts clients. And then you need to not just settle for marketing tactics, you need to build a marketing system so you can consistently get clients. And then once all of this foundational pieces in place, you will have the money, you will have the freedom of your mind to then take your place as a thought leader. I'm going to get into all the details in just a second, but this is big picture on the roadmap. Any questions about the roadmap on the whole, or is it clear enough for me to just jump into the rest of the content?
Like it.
Michelle, you had a question?
Yeah, the question is, all these best practices out there tell you before you start the right business, choose the right client and validate that the problem you want to solve is actually something somebody wants to pay for. Is that part of the number one piece, that whole customer validation piece? Where does that fit in?
It's halfway between 1 and 2. It's almost like sometimes like 1 and 2 sort of becomes an iterative process. So like a lot of times when I work with my clients, my foundational program, my signature program is my brand messaging program. And it's that my VIP experience, and it hits these two because they kind of like are a cyclical thing. So when you're thinking about like the right business, you also think about like, well, what's the expertise you want to build your business on and that kind of thing. But when you're really getting into your who is exactly your ideal client, that becomes more of a branding type of conversation. Does that make sense?
And then you're doing the validation that you don't then invest in the building the website for something that's not going to sell.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
market scan comes in here.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So let's talk about what it means to start the right business and what the steps are. I have several key decisions that you're going to need to make in each phase. So just, be keeping track of this. If you'd like to get a copy of the slides, just send me an email at betsy@betsydordan.com, and I could send you the slide deck so that you could at least have that to look at as well. So the thing about starting the right business, question, should you build a business only to make money? Why or why not?
Well, I think if you strive only to make money, you're not going to learn how to grow your business. You're spending all your time on making the money and not growing your business.
That's a huge issue for sure.
Now, I think you would do better if it's something other than money. I think you would be more inspired, like more, you would see things differently instead of like, oh, I just got to get a check to come in.
Right. From our standpoint, like Rob's saying, money is not a lasting motivation. That is true. Where you won't be able to invest, be creative, be inspired. Think about it from the client standpoint. Let's say you're just building like, well, I just should do this. This just matches my experience. I'm just going to start that business. How's that going to come across to a client?
That's right. Good point.
They're going to know it. Like they're going to know you just want their sale. Like I'm offering this free workshop. Is there any part of me that's coming across like I'm not passionate about trying to convey some information to you? And I think that's where it's like, you're in your sweet spot, because it's like, you want to be able to help people. Like you do some stuff like, I'm just going to do this for free. I want to do stuff because I want to spread my mission. People know that. Nobody wants to buy from someone who's like, well, I'll just do it. We're going to talk a little bit about this when we get to the, creating your website. If you have no website, what does that convey to your clients? So kind of putting from that perspective, like how would other people feel if you're not passionate about what you do? And people buy passion. You know, how many times do you, like, when you think about, like, you know, I've got my iPhone, I've got my Mac, I'm a Mac person, you know, how much was it Steve Jobs's passion, you know, that got that product off the ground versus just the product itself? So starting the right business, the biggest mistake that people have is the rush for results. And that leads us to the wrong business. That's where we didn't take a beat. So why I started the wrong business is I left Disney. I you know, I was getting a divorce and I'm like, I got to giddy up and go. I got to do something. It's like, well, it makes sense. I know how to do consulting. There you go. You know, and I didn't take that beat to really figure it out. So the fix on this is build a business that delivers on all your priorities. So Michelle, some of this is a branding thing, but some of this is just looking at your business model and your lifestyle. You know, thinking about what is it that you're looking for, your purpose, your profits, and your passion. So think about what is the lifestyle you want to create. If you can design your perfect day, your perfect week, your perfect month, what would that look like? And make sure you're really clear on that. I am very, very focused on this because I lost sight of my intentions, you know, and for you, pay attention to what is your intention. So as you're starting a business, what is this business supposed to create for your life? You know, is it because you want to have more location freedom because you're at an empty nester phase and you want to travel the world? You need a business model that supports that. You know, if you were like I was, where I had young kids at home and you want to be able to kick off by 3 so you could spend time with them after school, make sure you're clear on that and don't lose sight of it. One of the first things I do with my mentees in my VIP experience is I make them write it down and put it on a wall, you know, or put it in a journal or put it somewhere, put it on your whiteboard, whatever it is, and don't lose sight of that. And then think about the expertise and strengths you want to leverage as the foundation of your business. This is one of those things that's harder to see because we're so close to ourselves, but be really cognizant of it. So for example, my client, Jason, he wanted to build a business off of his formal expertise. So when he was an employee, he did a lot of negotiations in the mining industry around contracts. And so when he started on his own, he wanted to take that same formal expertise that was based on his education, his years of experience, and turn that into a business. That was his formal expertise. But Michelle, or Denise, on the other hand, Denise had a very different experience. So Denise is a CIO. And when she wanted to start her own business, what she wanted, when we were going through a lot of that work, is she wanted to build her business off of this informal expertise. So for her, just being a CIO wasn't what drove her. Is she was, you know, being a woman as a CIO is very unusual, but she was constantly mentoring other people throughout her entire career. And so when we worked on her branding, we really got focused, and what her ideal business model is she wanted to build a business model off of this informal expertise. You know, she ran this whole networking organization in Florida. And so this is what she wanted to build the expertise on. So what her business is now is she helps women, especially women from diverse backgrounds, get to the C-suite. She helps them thrive in their careers in tech. It's an informal aspect of her background and her expertise. A lot of times when you're starting your own business, this is what I realized like years later is I love branding. You know, as I mentioned, I worked on the Animal Kingdom branding. I've always been interested in strengths. I'm a certified Myers-Briggs person and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. I didn't really pay attention to it. But this is, so you have to decide, is it your formal expertise or your informal expertise? The other thing to look at when you're starting the right business is what business model makes the most sense for what you want to accomplish. So there's 2 primary different business models. There's the business to business model or the business to consumer. So the difference isn't about whether you work with individuals or groups. So if you've been in the coaching space at all, there's always this big, huge debate. What's the difference between a consultant or coach? And the reality is there's consultants who coach and there's coaches who consult, and that's usually kind of the mix. But the bigger thing that is important is to pay attention is, do I want to work with organizations as a B2B business, which is I'm getting paid to improve an organization's results. So it's about the organization. They're hiring me and I'm helping an organization. They use their company funds to pay you. This is the impression a lot of people have is like, well, larger organizations have more money. The fact is, it's not that they have more money. Well, they do have more money because they're bigger, but it's not about the amount of money they have, but the psychology of who you're working with a buyer is just very different. You know, as long as you could do a good business case, you could turn a very small contract into something very large, but the outcome is helping the organization. Versus a B2C, oh, an example is Keith. So one of my clients is Keith. So he's another former Disney executive. And so when he started his business, he now works with creative organizations or creative leaders within organizations. So that's a B2B business. He is working to help improve the organization's results. A B2C is about getting paid to improve an individual's results. So they're paying you out of their own money. So the psychology of the sale is a little different, is you have to be able to help somebody decide, like, I'm going to either invest in you or I might be paying my bills. Like they're paying you out of their own stuff. And so the goal for a B2C business is to improve an individual's life, career, relationships, etc., versus a B2B, which is about building companies' overall profitability. So another example, so Rachel is a dating coach. This is clearly a B2C business. So she's working with someone, she's a dating coach, and she helps high achieving women find success and love as they do at their work and their careers. So that's a B2C business. But then you have some people where you could have the same expertise, but they just apply it in different ways. So this is Jason. So Jason is an educational leader. And so his business model is all about providing coaching to principals in schools. It's a B2B business. The schools pay him to help these principals become more effective so that the schools themselves on the whole can become more effective. But then you have Sari. So Sari is also an educational leader. And when she left to start her own business, she decided to become a parent coach because she kept seeing the role of parents in the overall system. And so what she does now is she helps parents, especially parents of young children, help them become better parents. So her business is a B2C business. But then you got Kimberly, who's sort of like straddles the fence. So Kimberly is also an educational leader, but she's focusing on helping teacher mental health and teacher stress resilience and all of that kind of stuff, in part so that teachers can stay in the schools and still stay in the career that they love, but also for the schools to retain the teachers that they need, because teacher retention, particularly in Florida, which Michelle could attest to, and I think, James, you said you're also in Florida, could attest to that there's a major issue in Florida right now or on schools. So that she sort of straddles the fence. And so she has some of her products and services going towards both. So that's the difference. So you need to make that decision. And the last question around when you think about like starting the right business is why you? Why are you the one to bring this business to life? You know, what is driving you? So that's what it means to start the right business. Step 2 is all about clarifying your brand promise. So brand, a lot of times people think of a brand as it's your logo or it's just like how you choose to show up online. But this is like from my Disney background. And what I would say a brand promise is it's a promise that you can make to your clients that you can consistently deliver on. It's a brand promise on purpose. So brand is not just like how you're perceived. It's what you promise, what you're putting out there to say, this is what I'm going to do and you'll deliver on it. So you could see like my icons behind me. It's my butterfly bees. I'm all about transformation and I deliver on that. I help people repackage careers and turn them into businesses. It's a promise that you make. So when you think about your brand promise, there's a visual component, but a lot of it's in your words. You know, so when you think about for yourself, you know, how clear and confident are you when explaining the unique value of what you do? Scale of 1 to 10. 10, I'm super, super confident. 1, I'm not confident at all. We're a 5. 10. Nice, Felix. Oh, Sarah's at an 8. Sheila's at a 5. Oh, Jim, you're at a 10. Excellent. So you, for those of you who are 6 and above, like you are clearly outstanding. Anybody below, I would say you're clearly normal. You know, most of us struggle with trying to figure out, you know, what it is that we do. And a lot of it's simply because we all have that nose to the window pane syndrome. It's hard for us to see what is really unique about who we are and what we offer. You know, I usually tell people, like, you know, you're in your zone of genius is that when somebody compliments you and you're like, that's nothing. That is a sign that you are actually in your zone of genius, because we tend to underestimate what we do. But the biggest mistakes that people make around branding is putting the spotlight on ourselves, our methodology, and our mission. So this goes to Michelle's question. We're like, well, would you, you know, you figure out what it is and then you go shop it. Some of that is like we put the cart before the horse a little bit.
Yeah, I'm on this Zoom and I'm like, it's a seminar and I'm like, yeah, I'm missing it. But I just wanted you to know that I should have been way more diligent and cut and dry about it, but this is really important to me and I can hear the pain that you're going through. And let's be like, you know, if I can help, that's what I want to do. I don't ever tell people, oh, I can fix that for you. I cannot. But if I can help with a perspective that or some connections or something, then that's what I want to do. That's how you add value to the lives of other people. So that's what I want to do. And that's why I wanted to listen.
Awesome. Okay. So as it relates to the other big mistake that people make is that hammer looking for a nail approach, you know, where it's like, I have this, I just want somebody to buy this, you know, I'm looking and looking and looking. The fix here is that you need to move the spotlight off of you onto who your business serves and why. And out of that will emerge, you know, exactly what you should offer and how you should offer it and all of that kind of stuff. So it's about the who. So your brand is about the who. So when you're looking at starting the right business, you're still kind of like figuring out generally what kind of zone. Like, I want to help individuals specifically in this kind of space. When you get into branding, you start narrowing it down to the person that you want to help, because your brand promise is how you take what they're struggling with, their problem, and you convert it into value. That's where the value in your value proposition is. I apologize for the resolution. I couldn't get an old version of my client Katie's website, but this is what her website looked like in the beginning. You could kind of see some of the words on here. Is all she talked about is her her belief around what intention means, which is heart plus direction. And, you know, and it's not really clear. If you landed on this, you would know, who is she all about? What's she promising? What's going to be the impact? So when we work through her brand and her brand messaging and that clarity, you know, we got a lot more clear. We identified her ideal clients are continuous improvement leaders who want to help influence their organizations to create thriving learning cultures. And so we got clear on that, which made a massive difference with just even like she just launched a podcast to this particular audience. And now all of her concepts all kind of hang around this overall value proposition, because that is what she's trying to do. She's trying to help create learning organizations and she wants to help these continuous improvement leaders be positioned to be the ones to influence that kind of change. I don't know how I got this line on here. Does anyone know how I got this line on here and how to get rid of it? All right, we're going to have to live with it because I think our time is more valuable. Does that sound okay with all of you all? We're going to live with the little blue circle. And if anyone could figure out what happened to the blue circle, that would be great. Another example is Christy. So Christy and I first started working together. This is what her website looked like. And if you read through it, it's like, do you really have any earthly idea who she helps and how she helps them and what the value is? You're going to get a 20-minute consult for what? You know, like, it's not really clear. So then when we worked together, we dialed into it. She really works with financial services firms. So she's this really unique, creative person and this highly relational person. And so what she does is she works alongside these financial services firm and she helps them go through and identify their lukewarm clients and turns them into raving fans. And so that got a lot more clear. So she was able to get a lot more traction and makes her marketing 1,000 times easier because she knows who she's going after. So your decisions that you need to make is, who does your business exist to serve? Who? What's the person? And what problem do you solve? Especially those problems that are unmet or undermet in the marketplace. So when you're doing a market scan, you're not just saying, all right, I've got this all figured out. Now I'm going to the market. It's like you're looking at the market and saying, all right, where are the gaps? Like when I look at my business, like there's 1,000 million business mentors, there's 1,000 million web developers and copywriters and all that kind of stuff, but when I look in the marketplace, for my audience of consultants and coaches, there's not as many people who really focus on the foundational stuff. There's tons of people who will help you get clients in certain ways or do one-off. So I kind of made my own niche in a way. And I don't really have any direct competition. I have kind of competition. So it's really paying attention to the problem that you solve. And what is it that's unmet or undermet? The best businesses are the ones that aren't trying to be better than everybody else. It's just they're trying to be different. And how do you stand out? And really clarifying those differentiators against the competition, but it's as those people define the competition. So for example, I was working with a guy who's a fractional CFO, and he's like, well, my competition is other CFOs. I'm like, really? From the standpoint from your consumer, are really other fractional CFOs your real competition, or is it really accountants? Or is it using, their own QuickBooks and trying to do it themselves? And that's more of the competitive set. So you need to be more clear on who your competitive set is from that standpoint. And then really dialing into the value or outcomes that your ideal clients get by virtue of working with you. I was just working with a client the other day about, how do you get good testimonials? And it's the same way that you create a good value proposition, the same way as you create a good sales page for a website or what have you. Is it's almost like looking at it as a sandwich, is that you really want to lead with like who's the person is and their problem and their pain, and then very little about you, and then more about the value that they're going to create. That's what's important. It's not like, oh, let me tell you about my 5-step methodology. I mean, you might share it on a webinar like this, but really what you're trying to convey is work with me, and this is the value that you're going to get from working with me. So that's step 2. Any questions on step 2 before I move on to step 3?
Fantastic.
I'm sorry?
No, I said fantastic.
Oh, awesome. All right. Step 3, build a credible website that converts. True or false? We can play a little game. True or false? Either you can say thumbs up for true, thumbs down for false, or if you want to throw it in the chat. Websites play a minimal role in the long-term success of a consultant or coach. And Jim, you can opt out of it because I know what you're going to say, because I know you're going to for sure say yes, given what you do. No, that's not you.
False.
Why not? Why are we all saying false? Is it because I put it on here and you're like assuming that that's the right answer? Or do you all agree with me that websites are very important?
Absolutely, they are.
In what way?
Credibility, consistency.
Michelle has an excellent point. You keep hearing websites are obsolete, especially if you're building your brand on LinkedIn. Tons of stuff about how I would say about LinkedIn. When you're in the professional space, I do want to address that, and then I'll get into, actually, I'm going to address this here. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make on LinkedIn or on their website is they treat it as an online brochure or resume. When it comes to LinkedIn, LinkedIn is a very important part of your marketing system, but it's not your platform. What people are going to do is they're going to check out, so let's say you're at a networking event and you meet somebody, especially if you're in the professional space, they will check out both your LinkedIn profile and your website. But your website is what you own, and it's where you're going to create that online store. There is no SEO really for you on LinkedIn unless people are, looking specifically, but it's harder to find anything. You're fighting against the algorithms. It's your website is your online store. This is where you're going to attract and convert people. And this is where you're going to create your own email list. There's a huge difference between having a social media following and an email list. If anybody's watched what's gone on with Twitter over the past, couple of years, you might have this many followers, and then they change the algorithms of the ownership, and all of a sudden you have that. But when you have your email list, it's yours. You own it. You can control it. But your website itself says a lot about you and how legitimate and how credible you are. So the key for your website is you want to invest in the best website design and copy that you can afford. Now, if you're really good at it yourself, then maybe the visual part is your thing, and then you might need help on the copy. But whatever it is, you want to have the best website that you can afford. Because the facts are, no matter how a client comes to you, your website or lack of website shapes their thinking about you in less than 3 seconds. You know, have you ever been on a website that was just like the design was awful? It was really hard to navigate and you just like pop right off? Yes.
Yes.
If you were going to go work with somebody who had no website at all, you know, how would that influence your thinking about how legitimate they are and how seriously they take their business? It has a huge impact. There's 3 goals for a website. Number 1, connection. So you create this amazing personal connection with people through your copy, through your warm, relatable images. So if you've ever seen my website, you'll see I have lots of pictures of myself. And it's not like I'm somebody who likes to show myself, you know, because if you see me on LinkedIn, I don't post a lot of personal pictures of myself, you know, about like, you know, I'm not like a selfie kind of girl. But I do it on purpose because on my website, I want to create that personal connection with people. It's about that limbic brain kind of like, I'm a human, you're a human, let's connect. So if I have warm, relatable images of me, then you know that there's a human that you're eventually going to work with. You know, your copy creates that connection. You know, writing warm conversational copy where you're joining the conversation that's inside people's heads. Like when I know I've gotten really good with my copy is when I have people who get on intro calls with me and they're like, oh my gosh, you were reading my mind. I'm like, yes, you know, I did it. You know, I did a better job of making that connection with you. The other thing about your website and the other goal is credibility. So you establish your credibility by having high quality images, using really good design, you know, making it easy to navigate, you know, like that's an important part of credibility. Also your content, you know, having articles and other helpful things establishes your credibility. From a conversion standpoint, there's lots of things that you can put in with your website. Conversion would be some of the social proof that helps people feel more comfortable. Having an online calendar, make it easy for people to connect with you. Setting up your content in such a way that search engines will find you. There's a lot of things from a conversion standpoint. And yes, it's absolutely true. You can attract and convert clients by the power of your website. I would not have a business if that was not true. Most of my business comes from my content in some form or fashion. And so those are your goals. And I love the way, I love this quote from Casey Brown. She's a pricing expert. So one of my favorite ones about how I talk about with my approach to landing clients, but even on the website. And what she says is nobody will ever pay you what you're worth. They'll only pay you what they think you're worth, but you control their thinking. When you put your website out there, then you can control their thinking. If I just relied on, you know, LinkedIn and referrals, you know, I'd still be getting lots of potential clients who want me to do OD consulting, you know, versus what I do now. So you need to shape people's thinking about who you are, what you offer, and your value. And your value is established. If you think that just what you put in a proposal and your pricing is when people are going to figure out what you're worth, that's not it. They're every single touch point all the way before then has shaped their thinking, and your website makes a difference. So here's an example of Rochelle. This is what her website looked like before we started working together. You know, she has this Vertical Challenge LLC. I don't know if anybody would be inspired by that. She doesn't have really that great of a picture of her. She has this long stuff with her story. You know, then we went through the makeover, you know, and here's her warm, relatable image right there. She has her tagline, because no one should ever burn out of a, you know, career, life you love, you know, and it's a lot clear. She's a former meeting and event executive who burnt out, her life imploded, and now she has a business where she helps people help them create breakthrough success without burnout. And so she has like these images that show she's professional, but she's relatable, and she's conveying what her value proposition is in a heartbeat. There's another one of my clients who he predominantly just did LinkedIn, and had no online presence at all. We were not even done with his website. And he wound up getting a new client just when he's like, well, the client says, well, do you have a website? And he's like, no, I don't, but I got one under construction, showed the one under construction, and he wound up landing, new business strictly by virtue of just a draft of a website. So for you, the questions to ask yourself: what do you want potential clients to think and feel when they get on your website? What do you want them to do after landing on your website? And what's the best platform to build your website that can grow with you? There's a lot of different places. You could start with Squarespace, Wix, and all that kind of stuff. It may or may not have all the features you need to grow with you. For me, I'm a huge Kajabi fan because it's an online platform that can grow with me because of all the other things that it offers, like landing pages and so many other things. So think about that. And do you have the graphic design, copywriting, web development skills to get a website that establishes you as a premium brand? And or should you hire out? Like, that's the big question. Do it yourself, hire out. And if you do it yourself, can you get it at the quality level? So let's jump into step 4, build your marketing system. True or false? If you're an amazing consultant or coach, you're a guaranteed success. True? False?
False. False.
Yeah, it's false. What if anything scares you about marketing or sales? It just makes you uncomfortable. Or let me just say it this way, because there's lots of people who feel this way. Anybody feel a little squeamish about marketing? We all do in some ways. There's always that fear of like, I'm going to be like, I'm begging for an audience. I'm going to come across as like inauthentic and all that other stuff. There's several mistakes people make around marketing. Number 1, treating marketing and sales like looking for a job. Looking for a job and doing marketing for a business are completely different. Or avoiding marketing and sales like the plague is a huge deal. Or using scattered marketing tactics. The fix from a marketing standpoint is you need to work on your perspective. Marketing is nothing more than simply a way of serving clients we just haven't met yet. I haven't met most of you here. And I'm doing something that could be conceived as marketing, but I'm serving you. If this is the last that we have ever, this is the only time we're ever going to meet, I feel good because, I would love to work with all of you, but the reality is I feel good if you got 1%, of new knowledge for the day, that everything you put out there, every opportunity that you give people to have exposure, what you do, what you're all about, you're serving them. Going to a networking event and sharing a little bit, like my client, Sari, there's so many people that when she does a lot of live networking, and there's a lot of parents out there who didn't even know that there were resources to help them. And so even for her just showing up at a networking event gives these parents a sense like, oh, wow, there's a whole business that's designed to help me. Wow, I feel really validated that it's not just me who has this problem with my kids. So thinking about it, like, is this stuff slimy? If you have stuff to offer, like let's say we're back in 2020 and you had, the cure for COVID and you shared it with people, nobody would think it's slimy, but every single one of you have something very special that your ideal clients want and need. And if you hide it because of any limiting beliefs you might have around marketing, the world's going to be lost. They're not going to see it. The other thing, though, about marketing is you really need to choose marketing that suits your strengths and build it into a system. You need to have the handful of things that make a difference. This is like how I visualize a marketing system. That from a brand awareness standpoint, there's things that you can do. Like LinkedIn is a great way to build brand awareness, get people to know that you exist. And you could do LinkedIn, you could do live networking, you could do SEO and content creation. There's a lot of things that you could do, but all roads lead to your website or a specific page on your website where either they're going to visit your website, or maybe if you have a lead magnet of some kind, they're going to go there. Ideally, you want people to get on a free consultation with you. You present your proposal, close a deal. Some people may not be ready for that. So you do emails and other things to continue to offer value. But the thing about these tactics is you want to make sure that you leverage your best strengths and your values. I have a quiz on my website It's your superpower quiz. I have the URL there. What I've done in that particular quiz is you'll identify which of your 4 superpowers you have. I have a free training at the end that shows you a little bit more of a customized approach of how you can build your business, but you want to use your strengths. Because if you don't enjoy what you do to get clients and you don't invest money or time getting good at it, you just won't do it consistently. You know, who likes to do something every single day that you don't like and you're not good at? You know, if you were going to start working out, you would recommend do a workout that you actually will enjoy, because without consistency, it's impossible to build a predictable client pipeline. You have to enjoy it and you have to use your strengths. So the decisions for you to make is, how can you overcome the self-limiting beliefs, the self-doubts about marketing and sales, and just pick a handful of things. It's better to take a few things a mile than 100 things an inch. I mean, yeah, that was right. Few things a mile versus 100 things an inch. I said that right. So you want to think through, like, what can you do? And how can you move from potential clients from interest to intro call? It's not enough just to go to a networking event. What are you going to do to go from a networking event to an intro call? You have to have strategies for that. We're in the middle of a social media challenge for my community, and we're talking a lot about social media, about how do we, show up online, how do we post, and all of that kind of stuff. But one of the lessons that we're going to be going through in the community is, well, what do you do how do you get people from a LinkedIn conversation to an actual intro call? That's what you need to do in order to move it from the awareness to intent to try. And if you don't have sales scripts and templates, you really want to get it down to, like, what are you going to say on these calls? A lot of times people will avoid intro calls. I have some clients, like, they're so overwhelmed with the whole idea, but before we start working together, like, I'm not, like, they have opportunities, but they don't follow up because they have no idea what they're going to say. So you got to get that down. And then the other part is just, how are you going to get as competent with marketing and sales as you are with consulting and coaching? So that is step 4. Now we're moving on to step 5. So I'm a big fan of Maslow, where you got to get your foundational needs met before you get into a self-actualization. To me, the thought leadership is ultimately where you might want to get to when you get your foundational needs met. So when you think about the experts that you follow, the people that we all know, the people who shake up all of our existing ways of thinking are content creators, every single one of them. You think about Brene Brown, Simon Sinek, Tony Robbins. We can go on and on and on. All of them are content creators. They have books, they have speeches, they have all kinds of different ways that they distribute their content. Would you like to be seen and paid as an expert and thought leader? Yes? No? Maybe?
Yes.
So big mistake number 5 is holding off on sharing your ideas in a bigger way. Yeah, Sarah's saying, yeah, she just published a book, so she's doing awesome. She's our vocal coach and our thought leader here. The fix here is just take small incremental steps towards becoming a thought leader. Don't boil the ocean, don't eat the elephant all at one time. Just take steps. So these to me are the steps to get to thought leadership. Just start creating content for marketing purposes. Put some original ideas maybe out on social media. Maybe write a blog post here and there. Just start getting the process, start priming the pump. Then you could add in other stuff like videos and audio and all that kind of stuff. Maybe you should then offer a webinar like this one where you're a trainer or presenter. Then you become known as a sought after expert. And then when you really get good at that, then you can start inspiring people more with storytelling and being an inspirational speaker, and then you could take your place, as that thought leader, where you become widely known for your ideas and your personal journey. But wherever you are, just start wherever you are and start with a format that's easiest for you to produce. If it's easier for you to create an audio, then do it. If it's easier for you to write a blog post, do it. And I think we already addressed that one. I just think through like a small step. So those are the 5 steps. So let's review. So to start right, build a business that delivers on all your priorities and that leverages the expertise that you want to create right now. To stand out and build a brand, you got to do first who, then what. To build a credible online store, to attract and impress clients, you do need to build that online store. To consistently get clients, you need to replace scattered tactics with a system. And to establish yourself as a thought leader, just start creating content and just be as consistent with it as possible. And your next steps are, identify where you're really at in this journey. Where are you? And if you want the slide deck, please let me know. Just a couple other freebies I have on my website is I have a brand new quiz, a resource library quiz, where you take the quiz and it helps you identify where you might be in your business development journey and gives you customized resources that will, I have my curated podcast episodes and I have a bunch of downloads that are tailored for where you're at in your business development journey. And the next workshop I have for next month is going to be how to use archetypes to build a strong and unique consulting and coaching brand. So definitely check those out. And I'm very excited about, I'm a huge geek when it comes to archetypes. So I'm very excited about that one. And then as we wrap up, I want to talk about the number one biggest mistake that people make. And that is around the whole fear or imposter syndrome. If you have it, you're normal. If you don't feel like you have it, I think you probably do. You just aren't willing to admit it. The truth is that anytime you are stepping out into the unknown, you will have fear. You will have that imposter syndrome. Anytime you move into your zone of genius, it will happen. And it is absolutely a sign that you are on the right track. And it is a natural part of your heroic entrepreneurial journey. And the truth is, and this is when I'm talking about like how to build a business that you love versus one that you could tolerate versus, just something that you think you should do. It takes literally the same amount of money and time to build a profitable off-purpose business as it does an on-purpose business with one incremental cost, and that is vulnerability. But the thing about vulnerability is it has the word ability in it, and it's a skill, and it's a skill that can be developed. It's the ability to be wounded and be able to fall down and get back up. It's ability to withstand, I'm showing who I am, and it may or may not get out there. I could put a post out there and it may not get any likes. It's that ability to be wounded. And this is why every hero has a mentor. Every heroine has a mentor. I don't know if any of you are Hero's Journey fans like I am, love Star Wars, but Luke had Obi-Wan, Simba had Rafiki. You could look at even like the Barbie movie is a great example of the heroic journey. And even Barbie had a hero. But I love about the whole idea of, had a mentor. And the thing about mentor is it comes from the Greek and it means mind and courage at the same time. So mentor is somebody who can show you the way and holds out the belief in your potential until you can believe it for yourself. So this is why sometimes, like when you have that nose to the window pane syndrome and you're questioning yourself, you need somebody to be able to say, yeah, you can do it. Here, let me show you. Go, the Yellow Book Road is this way. Here's how you have to go back to the real world, or yes, the past hurts, or, let me show you the ways of the Force. So anticipate and engage fear with self-compassion, and when needed, hire a mentor. That's the fix. So, one wrap up thought, and then we'll get into questions. The thing about your sustainable success is not a straight line. It's not like, here I am today, here's my ideal state. Your progress is more like an ice skater, kind of moving side to side. You put something out in the market and see how it responds, and then you adjust. That's how you go back and forth. So that is it for the formal content. We are going to get into questions. I already got a few questions that people had already asked me, so I have those first. And if you have other questions, let me know, or we can continue, or just stay on and we'll just answer those questions. But let me just let me answer any generic questions, and then I'll get into this one. Any questions about the 5 steps? Or are these everybody's questions in general?
Betsy, I'll just say that the last point you made about vulnerability brought tears to my eyes. I think you're really right. I think leading and being brave and saying, I made mistakes, I want to share my mistakes, we're all going to grow. It's really vulnerable work. So thank you for that.
It is, and anytime you start something new, Sarah, you just started something new. You just did your first book. So you've been a business owner for a while. Did you experience that vulnerability as you were writing your new book?
Yes. So much so that at times I was in the writing process, just so terrified that I paused for a while and eventually had to use my own tools to feel safe sharing my story, putting myself out there, believing in my own expertise. I love this webinar, Betsy. And I do have a question about the market scan. Like, how do you know that you've done enough market research? Because I feel like I've done some, and then I heard that and I was like, oh, maybe I need to do more. I don't know.
I think this kind of goes along with the questions that are here. Like, how do I figure out my ideal client? If I narrow down, will there be enough clients who need me? And how do I validate that there's a market need? And how do you do that? That's all part of like phase 2. So how do you figure out your ideal client? I am the belief that you probably already know your ideal client, in some way. So like there's some stuff where you can get like, little clues when you look at, just, who's typically coming to you with problems, who's like there's certain people who call you and they're asking you questions. Like, so when I was trying to figure out, like when I was pivoting from consulting to the business I have now, I started paying attention when people called me. And so like, I think it was Rob who said that he met me from Michael Sapersky. I was on his podcast and I got tons of calls from people because of this podcast I did years ago. And I just started asking questions like, well, what was it about what I said that resonated with you? And some people said they appreciated what I said about my OD consulting, but a lot of people said about strengths. I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. And I started asking more questions like, well, what is it about that? What's going on in your life? And tell me a little bit more. And then I just started noticing like when people would call me that I haven't seen in a long time. And it's like, wow, like anytime I get a call now, I just know it's somebody who's at a crossroads somewhere in their career. Like if I get a call from a colleague that I haven't had, it's just like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, bam, that's what it is. So your ideal client is people who are typically coming to you anyway, or problems that you're drawn to solving. And it's just some of it's paying attention, but a lot of times, especially if you're in a coaching business, it's a younger version of you. It's somebody where you've overcome something and you want to help other people, so just pay attention to like who's in your sphere that is motivating you. If you narrow down, will there be enough clients to need you? Like if you're going to say, I help people, like I could say I help consultants, coaches, speakers, thought leaders, that kind of thing. People have a personal brand, but if I went to like only, I wanted to work with only people like, who are in their 40s and, and then I go even narrower down, you'll be able to know where I am getting way too narrow. It's like you narrow it down to a point where you could say, it's obvious how you're different. So one of my clients is Jahan, and she was working, wanted to work as a career coach. That was so broad, like there's no way she's going to stand out. But once we added in one extra thing where she wants to help high achieving women break into the highly competitive male dominated sports industry, well, now there's an automatic differentiation. Now you know enough to write copy. So it's getting to that point. And then to validate there's a market need for what I want to offer is the market need is not like I have a program, I'm going to go talk to 1 million people to see if they like it. It's talking to enough people to see the themes so that what you're going to create resonates with them. It's the other way around. You let it emerge. So like, let's say you find out like with Jahan, she might have done a market scan to say she's really passionate. She wants to help people break in. She might go to the market and ask like, so, compared to other, career leadership coaches who are out there, what's missing? If I can create a dream solution, what would that look like? And then getting the themes together, then she could identify like, well, some of them just really want to be in a community. So now she might have like a high-end mastermind community, but a handful of them want just one-on-one. So that's where she defined, that's as much as she needed. Did that answer that question well enough, or is there more? Answer, did I do a good enough? Okay. What other questions you all have? Michael? Oh, that Michael leaving? All right. Other questions? Andrew.
I wonder what it is that we're looking for in our mentors when we're still kind of navigating the space. Like what makes a good mentor in your life or anybody else?
I would say a mentor is first, number one is they've been where you want to go. You know, so if they have relevant experience, like if they're, you know, like you picture, you know, Luke went with Obi-Wan. Well, Obi-Wan was a Jedi. You know, like a mentor is different than a coach. You know, a mentor is somebody who's been where you want to go. And I think another big part is fit. You know, does your personality fit? So it's like relevant. Do they have the relevant expertise, but is your personality a fit? Does their style a fit? Do they fit your values? Like I had a mentor who I really got a lot from when I first started my business. You know, had the relevant knowledge, but he was a lot more aggressive in his approach. Like I wouldn't want to emulate that. His values didn't align with mine. I believed a lot more in relationships and led with relationships, and he was, you know, kind of harsh. So he wasn't a good fit. So found somebody else who was a better fit, who appreciated that value. Did I answer what?
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Awesome. What other questions? Michelle?
So I've been on this thought or on this path of, because I'm ex-corporate, thinking that I should only work B2B and with corporate clients and with groups, like with teams, right? And in the last year, because of the networking I was doing and moving, you know, from Toronto primary to Orlando and being in a totally different space, my gut is telling me I just want to work with women management consultants. So I'm an ex-management consultant from the Big Four, right? And had leadership roles there. And so what you're saying resonates, because if that feels really natural, but for some reason I'm terrified of this B2C thing. I'm like, no, all I've done is sell to corporate. But at the same time, right now, I feel like I don't want to deal with the procurement department. I don't want to deal with talking to the leaders who don't really care about the result. And yeah, so that's just, it's resonating because I feel like I'm in that pivot and that shift.
I would definitely validate it. Like part of where my business evolved, like when I first started mentoring, I was doing mostly consultants and I added coaches because I found like 75% of people who thought they wanted to start a consulting business actually wanted to start like a coaching business and wanted to do that. And that's why I get very particular in that starting the right business is you want to build it off of your formal expertise versus your informal. You know, so you have so you have a formal expertise that led you to be an effective consultant. So you have all of your years of education. You can look back at your formal credentials. You could say, oh, I have this background, you know, all of that you say, okay, good, I have that. But then you built another informal expertise, you know, because you know what it means to be a management consultant. You know, you understand that world, but it's harder to see it and it's harder to value it. But if your heart's there, that is usually the right place to go. Is there more?
Yeah. So how often do you find that people, the people that you work with, don't have have the wrong objective or don't have an objective? They just want to start something. Like how many people really know where they want to go or what they want to do? You know, very definitely. Is that common or is that
I don't think I work with anybody who knows exactly what they want to do or else they wouldn't need me. You know, like it's like one of those things where it's like, well, should I get my car fixed before I bring it to the shop? It's like, well, you know, like, should I know exactly, you know, why I have this illness before I go to the doctor? Like no one really has that clarity before we start working together. I think that they have inklings, like as Michelle was saying, it's like, I have an inkling, but I need validation and I need some way to make this come to life in some sort of way where I can, how am I going to sell this? Well, how am I going to frame up my offers? But it's in there. And like, if we could pull it out and package it, and then it's like, okay, yeah, now I can move in this direction. Like I showed you the picture of Kimberly. She knew she didn't want to do something with corporate. I mean, she didn't want to go back to schools anymore. She didn't want to work. She didn't want to be an educational leader. It took a lot of work. Like we did a lot of different things to get her to get to that clarity. Like we did a vision board because she got stuck, but everybody gets stuck. Like this is the hardest part. That's where I say like, once you see it, won't be able to unsee it. And then you're going to be on fire.
That's great. Thanks.
What other questions?
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the life design, because my situation is also a life design question, because I'm married to someone who's much older, and where I still want to do a lot of work, and he's like, he wants to travel and play golf. And, that whole, of course, it needs to be a partially remote business, but I just am so energized when I'm in a room with people and doing change there, be it facilitating or teaching something. So I'm just curious about if you have a good example of going through that life design that's so much more complex, especially at midlife, right? Yeah, anything you can say about that would be good.
Like there's, the world has changed so much since COVID, where almost everybody's some version of remote, like very few is like live. So like when I first started my business and then I pivoted, like my kids were at different ages, but I was really focused on the beginning. It's like, all right, I want to be able to have that time, at home type of thing and be done by this period of time. So like working as a consultant, I was able to kind of like chunk, once I realized like, okay, all the international stuff is not 100%, but it's like I could chunk my business trips and do things in a certain way. But now I'm going to Florida tomorrow, but I'm not working. I could take my business everywhere because I have a completely location independent business. So you kind of have to decide like, this is where like the right products and services. But like one of my clients, she's in this retirement stage, but she loves being around people. So she's going to create her own little workshops. Like she's going to create workshops for herself, in different locations of like where she might want to travel to, and say, okay, well, you could do it that way. There's a lot of ways that you could satisfy like the extroversion needs, but still have the independence. But everybody's somewhat virtual. Like it's weird even seeing how people are landing consulting gigs now versus pre-pandemic, as the entire organization is virtual. So you almost have to kind of like craft your own, because like even like workshops, like I did go, like I had a little mini consulting engagement last year. The entire team was across the entire United States, but we had one part where we brought everybody together. So as you're creating your own things, you could decide like, you have to have something that's some stuff you can't get away from the virtual nowadays. Even like networking events, a lot of them are even virtual. So you have to have some sort of virtual business. And if you're going to do from a marketing standpoint, it's almost like if you build all the marketing and you do everything local, like people ask, well, what about like on the ground networking? I'm like, well, yeah, you can do that. And that's fun for, relationship building. But if you only focus on that, like if Andrew and Jim and I just focused on only going to networking events here, then our client base is only here versus the globe. And so if you have, that's where the starting the right business is important. It's getting clear, like what are the kinds of products and services that you want to do, and how do you craft it to support what you want, your husband's travel needs and the current state of how the world of work has evolved. Did that help? Okay. What other questions? I like being on the hot seat. How about you, Judy? I haven't heard much from you outside of the wonderful comment you made at the end.
I'm giving it a lot of thought. I really am. I think the whole idea that I really know I have a lot to offer to people who are earlier in their career as consultants, it's a real thing, but it's kind of like, what if like I'm putting up all these barriers for myself. What if they don't know me? What if they have bad impression of me? It's just all this weird stuff. So that's not a question. It's a roiling, boiling feeling, but I think that means kind of in the right space, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I look forward to checking out your quiz. I'm wondering what I'll learn from that. So I look forward to that. And
Awesome.
So and I have to go too, but thank you so much, Betsy.
Awesome. Well, thanks you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you all for being here. I'll see you next month.
Thanks, Betsy.
Hey, Andrew, wait, before we go, hold on a second.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm hanging out.
All right. I'm
Okay,
going to formally
what's up?
stop. Oh,